Hello and welcome to the next moment that you've all been waiting for, the Golden Pig Awards for the Dominaria Precons, the Dominaria Commander cards, whatever you want to call them. Throughout all of spoiler season, these commanders have been competing for this very prestigious award. And if you haven't seen my previous episode on the Golden Pig Awards for the Dominaria United set itself, yes, I have split these in half. Because, well, oh my goodness, there are an absurd amount of commanders in Dominaria. I mean, I think the main set had like 41, in the precons, or, commander products themselves had like 34, so there are a ton of great options, and yeah, a lot of contenders for this award. And of course, the winner of this award will receive the Golden Pig Trophy, which of course is definitely made of pure gold. It is definitely 100% pure gold, and not at all just, some trophy bought off of Amazon that is made out of, well, not that, probably. Regardless, the winner, of course, will display this award and cherish it forever. Now, like that previous episode, and essentially all the other Golden Pig Awards episodes, a couple of quick disclaimers. Yeah, these picks are 100% based off of my own opinions on what my favorite commanders are, and your opinions might differ, and that's okay. Also, when I say favorite, that does not necessarily mean, most powerful, so yeah, it is just based off of my favorites, which might, be for one reason or another. When it comes to the most powerful commanders, there's going to be a separate episode on tier ranking, so make sure you're on the lookout for that. And also, just a note, if I do sound a little bit different, my recording setup right now is slightly different, so I can't be my normal, loud, boisterous self, and so I have to be a little bit quieter, so it's not that I'm not excited about these commanders. If I sound a bit quieter, it's that, well, I can't be, yelling like I usually do. But my recording setup should be back to normal next week, hopefully, and regardless, though, now with all that said, let's jump into the awards. So first up, let's start things off at number 10 with Jensen Carthelian Druid Exile, a 2/2 human druid that costs green-white and has... Whenever you cast a multicolored spell, scry 1. If that spell was all colors, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance, and by paying 5, we can tap to add Wooburg. So this is a 5-color commander, and okay, guilty as charged. Okay, yes, I do like building around 5-color commanders because I like all the different possibilities and all the different directions that you can take them when you've got access to, a big card pool, essentially. And this commander has a lot of potential to be taken in some different directions. I mean, first up, okay, any multicolored spell that you cast is going to give you value. You get to scry 1, which is, not necessarily card advantage, but is fantastic card selection. On top of that, yeah, you could take this commander in a 5-color tribal build where you're casting a bunch of 5-color spells, because when you are casting those spells, you just get the additional benefit of getting a 4/4 angel with flying and vigilance on top of, that spell that you're casting too, and on top of that, scry. And of course, this commander can be a great way to help you fix your mana, or, maybe more so I should say, to be able to filter your mana to help you cast those spells. Pay 5, tap, add Wooburg. This basically is just, mana filtering, and of course, there are ways to take advantage of that ability as well that we'll talk about here in a bit. But yeah, this commander, again, definitely not an overpowered 5-color commander, but one that can be taken in a lot of exciting directions. First up again, like I did mention, yeah, there are ways to really take advantage of that ability. Like, Biomancer's Familiar, activate abilities of creatures you control cost 2 less to activate. So instead of that costing 5 mana to activate, now it just costs 3. And now if it just, instead of it just basically filtering our mana, it is now basically ramping us. We have a commander that now essentially, we pay 3 to tap it and we tap for 5 mana instead. So we're generating mana now with that. And of course, on top of Biomancer's Familiar, there's other cards that can help fill this role as well. Like, Zerda can be a great way to do that. And yeah, you might even be able to utilize Zerda as a companion with certain builds around this. So you might be able to get that cost even lower and really take advantage of that ability. Regardless, speaking of taking advantage of spells, well, yeah, you can take advantage of your multicolored spells even further with General Ferrous Rockerick. It has, whenever you cast a multicolored spell, create a 4/4 red and white golem artifact creature token. So yeah, General Ferrous Rockerick can be great with this commander, again, with a multicolored theme, especially in a 5-color, theme. Essentially, get this out, get your commander out, And yeah, just cast a 5-colored spell. You get a 4/4 Angel with, Flying Vigilance, and also a 4/4 Golem, so that's 8 power for just casting a single spell. But a non-multicolored spell that you might want to consider because it can provide you a ton of value throughout the game. How about Elgith Crossroads Augur? It says if you would scry a number of cards, draw that many cards instead. So again, card selection is nice with that scry, but now with this in play with our commander, whenever we cast a multicolored spell, we get to draw a card, which is just straight up card advantage, and this can provide us a ton of card advantage throughout the game. And of course, again, like I mentioned, yeah, if you want to go with a 5-color build, you can use some fantastic cards like Maelstrom Archangel, Garth One-Eye, and the Kami War. Again, when you are casting these with your commander in play, you get an additional 4/4 Angel, which, the Maelstrom Angel itself is a 5/5 Angel flying. And on top of that, when it deals combat damage to a player, you may play a non-land card from your hand without paying its mana cost. So basically, cast something for free out of your hand, and yeah, that can be a ton of value, especially in a deck like this. And again, especially since you can have, those triggers again from your commander for casting a multicolored spell. Or how about Garth, the utility knife itself? Tap, choose a card name that has been chosen from among Disenchant, Braincast Terror, Shivan Dragon, Regrowth, Black Lotus. Create a copy of the card with the chosen name, you may cast the copy. None of these are, multicolored, but that's fine. You can still get a ton of value out of a card like this, and it can really help you out in a ton of situations. Speaking of which, yeah, the Kami War can be a great way to get rid of things as well. And yeah, again, getting a ton of value when you do so because you're getting an angel with it. And again, you get to scry. Exile target non-land permanent opponent controls. Its lore counter 2 is return up to 1 target non-land permanent and opponent controls back to their hand. Then they discard a card, or each opponent discards a card actually. On 3, then it flips into, a dragon. So yeah, you can get a lot of value out of 5-color spells especially. And yeah, just even if you want to build, just a multicolored tribal deck that doesn't really focus on 5-color, that can still get you a ton of value with this commander. So yeah, with Jensen, I'm very excited to see yet another exciting 5-color commander that you can build in a lot of different directions. And one that, again, isn't, just overpowered, just 5-color goodness. This can be just 5-color taken in a couple of different ways. Moving on though, let's go on to number 9 with yet another 5-color commander with Jared Carthalion. And the lore mages out there, please let me know in the comments below the relation between these two. Regardless, Jared Carthalion, a planeswalker with 5 starting loyalty, and it costs Wooburg. +1, create a 3/3 Kavu creature token with trample that's all colors. Now, I started playing way back when, and I think it was either Odyssey or Onslaught, but yeah, I think it was Invasion before that actually had the Kavu, and I remember seeing them and just being really excited about that creature type. And, for other Kavu fans out there, we've had a bit of a dry spell when it comes to getting Kavu cards for quite some time. We finally have a commander that can be built, yes, in a very, specific way, in a Kavu tribal build, making Kavu after Kavu after Kavu. And Jared can not only make Kavu, but it can also make them massive. -3, choose up to 2 target creatures. For each of them, put a number of +1 counters on equal to the number of colors it is. So again, activate this a couple times, get some Kavu in play, -3, and then make some massive Kavu. Again, they're all colors, so those 3/3 Kavus are going to get 5 counters on them, turning them into 8/8s with trample. So Kavu Tribal, here we come. Now the -6 in my opinion really isn't all that impactful, but again, with the Kavu abilities and the abilities to make them massive, that's great. Still -6 if you need it. Return a target multicolored card from your graveyard to your hand. That card was all colors, draw a card and create 2 treasure tokens. Cool, we can get something back if we really need to, but more importantly, Kavu. Now, obviously, Jared does not have to be built in this way, but yeah, I'm excited for Kavu Tribal. So Kavu Monarch, all Kavu have trample. Whenever their Kavu comes into play, put a +1 counter on Kavu Monarch. This thing can become massive throughout the game. Speaking of massive, Kavu Mauler has trample. When it attacks, it gets +1 until end of turn for each other attacking Kavu. Yeah, again, you can flood the board with Kavu in a lot of ways and just start swinging out, making this massive and hit for a lot of damage. Selesnyologist is a great way to get even more Kavu in play by populating. Pay 2 and a green, exile target creature card from a graveyard, then populate. So yeah, basically create a token that's a copy of a creature you already control, so more 3/3 Kavu that are all colors. And of course, there are plenty of other great ways to populate, and yeah, Jared can utilize all of them again, of course, because it's a 5-color commander. And because of that, you also have a wide range of spells that can help you out in a lot of ways. I mean, Distant Melody can be a great one. Choose a creature type, draw a card for each permanent you control of that type. We're going to be saying Kavu, and we're going to be drawing a ton of cards. Next up, though, we've got Knight of New Alara, which says each other multicolored creature you control gets +1/+1 for each of its colors. So, my goodness, this can pump your Kavu a ton just on its own. Because those 3/3s are automatically going to be 8/8s again, because they're every single color. So 8/8 Kavus, plus of course, with Garth, they can get even larger if we want to get those counters on them, basically turn them into 13/13s as well with Trample, and that's just the start. And with this kind of, multicolored matters approach, we can also utilize, Plane-wide Celebration. Choose 4, you can choose the same mode more than once, create a 2/2 citizen creature struggling all colors, or return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, or proliferate, or you gain for life. The most important ones of this, obviously, are again making 2/2 citizens that are all colors, because, your commander can make them massive with those counters, or again, if you've got Knight of New Alara in play, that's lovely. But yeah, also the ability to proliferate can of course really help with your commander's loyalty counters, and also help get more and more +1/+1 counters on your creatures too. So yeah, overall, I'm really excited that we have a Kavu commander out there finally, and yes, I think it's a pretty spicy build. So Jared Carthalion, congratulations on finishing at number 9. But now it's time for us to move on to number 8 with Torwaki the Younger, a 3/3 human archer with reach and lifelink that costs 3 black-red. It says if another source you control would deal non-combat damage to a permanent or player, deals that much damage +1 to that permanent or player instead. On top of that, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Torwaki the Younger deals 2 damage to any target. So this commander actually can be taken in a couple of different directions, and it can do some pretty spicy things. I mean, additional damage from your other sources, that is something that you can really take advantage of, especially in these colors. And of course, on top of that, again, turning every single one of your instant sorceries into, an additional basically shock is pretty shocking. Okay, that was terrible, but yeah, you can do a lot of exciting things with that as well. So one direction you might take this, is a spell slinger type of approach where you're casting, instant or sorcery after instant or sorcery and just pinging down, creatures, pinging down your opponents, and, taking even more advantage of that damage that you can put out there. Or the other way, and probably the way that I would build around it, would be to do more of, a group slug type of a commander. This commander, again, can give you additional points of damage from your other sources, so that can really add up throughout the game when you've got a lot of those sources in play. Now, of course, even a build like that, a group slug build, can still utilize, plenty of instant sorceries that are fantastic, like Faithless Looting, a great looting effect, draw 2, discard 2, you can flash it back. So with this is basically, loot 2, and then shock as well, again, in combination with this commander, and you can do it again with that flashback, so you can get 4 damage out of this. And speaking of damage, my goodness, Gutter Snipe can help out in a lot of situations. Whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. Again, if you are going in that, more storm kind of build, that more spell slinger type approach, cool, you can ping down your opponents very quick with this, and especially since, again, your commander says, instead of it being 2 damage, let's make that 3. And when it comes to turning 2 damage into 3, Harsh Mentor also has something to say about that. Whenever an opponent activates an ability of an artifact, creature, or land on the battlefield, if it isn't a mana ability, Harsh Mentor deals 2 damage to that player. So this already just naturally punishes your opponents throughout the game for, different activations. And now with this, again, 3 damage versus 2, that adds up a lot. And of course, the damage can build up even more, and this game can get even quicker when we utilize group slug type cards. And let's start with Descent into Avernus. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 Descent counters on Descent Avernus, then each player creates X treasure tokens, and Descent or Avernus deals X damage to each player, X the number of Descent counters on Descent into Avernus. This can keep building and adding up throughout the game, and again, every single time we get this, it's going to be 1 additional damage to everyone. Which of course helps with Roiling Vortex as well. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, Roiling Vortex deals 1 damage to them. That's going to be 2 damage instead now, thanks to our commander. And also, it says whenever a player casts a spell if no mana is spent to cast it, Roiling Vortex deals 5 damage to that player, so this can punish players. Again, it's going to be 6 damage for that. And also, on top of that, pay a red, your opponents can't gain life this turn. This can just stop our opponents from ever trying to get out of the hole that we are putting them into. But perhaps the most brutal and quick way to take out players is with Mana Barbs. Whenever a player taps a land for mana, Mana Barbs deals 1 damage to that player. Our commander now turns that into 2, which can make things get really out of hand. So essentially, again, every single time a player is tapping a land, they are shocking themselves. So yeah, things can go really quick with this kind of a strategy. But again, I think that this commander has a lot of potential, and again, Torwaki the Younger can be taken in a lot of different exciting directions. So congratulations again at finishing number 8. Next up though, let's move on to number 7 with Stang Echo Warrior. That's right, Stang is back. Stang is a 3/4 human warrior that costs 2 red-green that says whenever it attacks, create Stang Twin, a legendary 3/4 red and green human warrior creature token. It enters the battlefield tapped and attacking. For each aura and equipment attached to Stang, create a token that's a copy of it attached to Stang Twin. Sacrifice all tokens created this way at the beginning of the next end step. So this is a very unique commander, one that we really haven't seen before. This is basically, okay, hey, you got a Voltron commander that you can suit up essentially with a bunch of auras and equipment, and when you attack with this commander, you get basically a second identical copy of it with everything that is attached to it. So you can take out your opponents twice as fast. Again, you're essentially swinging at separate opponents with these. Or at least I should say you can. Obviously, you can swing at the same opponent with both to deal double the damage to that player. Or again, yeah, you can just take out opponents, 2 at a time, essentially, once you get set up properly with this commander that basically can be 2 in 1. Now, also on top of that, I mean, there's some really exciting things that you can do with all those, auras and equipment that are going to be coming into play. Those token copies that you get and then you sacrifice. There's some really cool plays that you can do that as well. So again, this might, appear to be a Voltron commander, but you can also go in a value direction too. First up, yeah, I mean, equipment like Black Widow Forge can be great with this commander to help you hit really hard with both, the original and the copy as well. +1/+1 for each land you control. You are in green, you've got plenty of ways to ramp. This can help you hit hard. But of course, also, you can hit in a different way with, Dragon Mantle. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card, and it gives the enchanted creature the ability to essentially have Fire Breath. But yeah, drawing a card when this comes into play, obviously you get it the first time, but then every single time you attack with your commander, you get a token copy of your commander with token copies of the auras attached to it, so you draw whenever you attack too. So of course, in a similar way, Rune of Might, enters the battlefield, draw a card, and as long as the enchanted permanent is a creature, gets +1/+1 and trample. So a way to get damage through with your Stang Twin and your Stang, and also a way to draw a lot of cards throughout the game if you keep it going. Again, there are just some interesting and unique ways to gain value out of a commander that can essentially make a lot of token copies of your auras. And ways to get value out of your artifacts as well, like, a Scrap Trawler. Whenever it or another artifact you control into a graveyard from the battlefield, return to your hand target artifact card in your graveyard lesser mana value. So when you're getting all those copies of those equipment and eventually you need to sacrifice them, you're getting a lot of triggers out of this, and you can get a lot of things back from your graveyard. Speaking of triggers though, we can also get a lot of value out of Fanged Marauder to the point where we're going to have an absurd life total. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may gain 5 life. Again, we're making a token copy out of all of those artifacts that are equipped to our commander, and then, yeah, we sacrifice them. So if we've got, 5 equipment attached to our commander, that is, 5 artifacts sacrificed? That is 25 life just for attacking with our commander. So yeah, we can really pad our life total with something like this, and we can actually make an army with something like Archon of Sun's Grace with the other end, of auras. It says Pegasus creatures you control have lifelink, and whenever an enchantment enters battlefield under control, create a 2/2 white Pegasus creature token with flying. So yeah, a flying lifelinking army, sign me up for that, just by attacking and getting a bunch of token copies of my auras into play. So again, Stang might be, a Voltron commander at heart, but it also is one that can provide you a ton of value in a lot of exciting and different ways. So yeah, Stang, congratulations at finishing number 7. But now we are moving on to number 6 with Baru Worm Speaker. And Baru is a 3/3 human druid for 2 green that says worms you control get +2/+2 and have trample. And on top of that, by paying 7 and a green and tapping it, you create a 4/4 green worm creature token. But this ability is going to cost X less to activate, where X is the greatest power among worms you control. So again, just assuming you've got one of those tokens in play, again, with Baru in play as well, that is a 6/6 worm, so your ability is going to cost 6 less, so that is going to be 1 and a green instead of 7 and a green, which of course makes a massive difference. And being able to churn out, basically 6/6s with trample for just 2 mana, that's fantastic. And of course, again, if we get a bigger worm into play, if we have another way to pump our worms, we can get this down to just a single mana for an activation. And of course, in green, we've got plenty of ways to untap this to get this ability, activated more than once in a turn and make a massive worm army in absolutely no time. And yeah, to my knowledge, we really haven't had, a worm tribal commander yet. And yeah, I know Morophon is a thing, sure. But yeah, a dedicated worm tribal commander seems really exciting. And yeah, there's some really powerful things that you can do with this. First up, again, like I mentioned, there are plenty of ways to untap this commander to get that ability again. And when you're just paying, 2 or, even 1 mana, just for a 6/6 Worm with Trample, be able to activate that multiple times in a turn can be very impactful. So you have Seeker of Skybreak, tap, untap target creature. Or Quirion Ranger, return a forest you control to his owner's hand or untap target creature, activate only once each turn. Or how about, Vitalize, which can untap all your creatures, which of course can, just be a great combat trick if you really want with your creatures. Or again, it can just be a way to utilize your commander's ability again. And of course, if you've got Seeker of Skybreak, you get that again as well. So yeah, a lot of fantastic ways to untap your commander to be able to get a worm army in absolutely no time. Also, though, of course, with a worm tribal deck, you can also utilize, well, worms, like Bellowing Tangleworm, which is an incredible one in this deck. Intimidate and other green creatures you control have Intimidate. Here's the thing, your worms are going to be green, especially the ones that your commander's creating. So now all of your creatures, again, are essentially unblockable, except for, artifact creatures and, other green creatures. But if your opponents don't have those, your worms are going to be getting through. So yeah, trample is nice, but being, basically unblockable is even better. Next up, of course, there's plenty of great ways to make even more worm creature tokens. I mean, like Sandwarp Convergence is a fantastic one. Creatures with flying can't attack you or planeswalkers you control, so that's incredible. It can save you from a bunch of flyers. Of course, on top of that, beginning of your end step, create a 5/5 green worm creature token. Which, of course, again, with your commander is essentially a 7/7 with trample, which also, on top of that, basically, makes your commander's ability just cost a single mana, because again, that's 7 power for, that reduction. Speaking of power though, yeah, a card from my childhood, Crush of Worms, can be incredible with this commander. Put 3 6/6 green worm creature tokens in play and you can flash it back for 9 green. I mean, you're in green, you can ramp a ton. But yeah, what's that? I mean, normally that's 18 power between 3 creatures for, 9 mana to start. But with this commander, that's an additional 6 power on top of that, 24 power over 3 creatures with trample. Good luck, opponents. So yeah, I really wasn't expecting a worm tribal commander, but I think Baru Wormspeaker has a ton of potential. So again, Baru, congratulations at finishing 6th place. But now it's time for us to move on to 5th place. And okay, I'm going to absolutely butcher this name, so my apologies. Rosnacht? Let's go with that, okay? But I'll say Raz, okay? Raz, Heir of Roga, is a 0/1 Kobold Warrior for a single red. And Raz has Battle Cry. Whenever it attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. And Heroic, whenever you cast a spell that targets Raz, create a 0/1 red Kobold creature token named Kobolds of Carekeep. So this is a tiny kobold that can pump your army and also make you a ton of other tiny kobolds. This is also a very aggressive and low to the ground commander, and yeah, you don't see too many commanders that really benefit you, for just targeting them. Heroic isn't really something that you very often see on a commander, and yeah, I think this one again has a lot of potential to do a lot of exciting things. I mean, yes, to start off, yes, this commander is quite low to the ground, so yes, you can get through a couple of times just, by attacking, because you can get your commander out and just attack and get a lot of value out of that battle cry to pump your other creatures. But eventually you need to get your commander through with things like Prowler's Helm. Can't be blocked except by walls. Not many players are running walls out there, so yeah, basically unblockable. And yeah, if your commander is going to be sent into combat quite a bit because you want to take advantage of that battle cry, then you want to make sure you can protect your commander in combat. But another card that really can help you out with this commander is Livewire Lash. Yet another equipment, but this one helps out in a different way. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has, whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell, this creature deals 2 damage to target creature or player. Again, with that Heroic, we already want to target our commander a lot, and this is just another great benefit. Now, essentially, every single time we target our commander, we get a 0/1 Kobold, so a nice creature token, and of course, on top of that, we basically get a shock for free as well. So of course, a lot of low to the ground can-tripping targeting spells like Expedite can really help us out. Target creature gains haste until end of turn, draw a card. And again, basically just stapled on top of that is, also create a creature token, because that's what our commander does. And if we've got Livewire Lash or other benefits, keep that in mind too. Also keep in mind targeting spells that can be cast multiple times, like, Reckless Charge. Our creature gets +3/+0 and gains haste until end of turn, but we can also flash it back, so we can get double the value out of this with those heroic triggers. And speaking of targeting value, well, one card that can really help us out with that is, of course, Zonahedron Grinder. Whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell that only targets Zonahedron Grinder, copy that spell for each other creature you control that spell could target. Each of those copies targets a different one of those creatures. So essentially, at a certain point, we need to switch over and start targeting Zana to, make our army maybe massive with Reckless Charge, or again, draw a ton of cards with Expedite, or something like that. We can. And of course, another way to get value, well, at least for us, is to take advantage of all of our creatures coming into play with, especially all those kobolds are making, with something like Witty Roastmaster, which is like a kind of like an impact tremors. Whenever another creature enters battlefield under control, it's going to deal 1 damage to each opponent, so we can really put the pressure on our opponents and dish out a ton of damage with something like this throughout the game. But yeah, I think Raz is a very interesting and unique low to the ground commander that I think has a lot of potential, and I think many players out there are going to be pretty excited for what they can do with this commander. Next up though, let's move on to number 4 with Zyra the Golden Sting, a 3/3 insect assassin that has flying and haste and costs 1 black, red, green. Zira, I'm not sure exactly which one it is, I'm gonna go Zyra though. Whenever it attacks, put an egg counter on another target creature without an egg counter on it. When that creature dies, if it had an egg counter on it, draw a card and create a 1/1 black insect creature token with flying. So this commander can essentially just spread a bunch of counters out there throughout the game, and I'll talk about a variety of ways to really take advantage of this. And yeah, when you do that, you can get a lot of potential value. Again, when those creatures then die, again, whether they're your creatures or opponent's creatures, if they've got egg counters on them, you get to draw a card and make a token with flying, and this just has a lot of potential. So this Jund commander can be both aggressive and also get a ton of value, and yeah, in a very interesting and unique way. One way, of course, to take advantage of this commander's trigger is, it's again a combat trigger and attack trigger, so yeah, just attack again with, your commander. So Relentless Assault is a great way to do that. Untap all creatures that attack this turn after this main phase, additional combat phase, while additional main phase. Basically, hey, you get an extra combat. So yeah, with that extra combat, you get an extra trigger, and of course you get to put out more damage, not just with your commander, but of course, if you've already got an insect army that you've made with your commander, put out even more damage with that too. And yeah, of course, there are other ways to double up on that trigger as well, like Ceramic Resonator, so make sure you keep that in mind as well. But one way to really make the most out of that trigger is with Radiant Performer, which has flash, and it says, when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, choose target spell or ability that targets only a single permanent or player. Copy that spell or ability for each other permanent or player that spell or ability could target. Each copy targets a different one of those permanents and or players. Basically, okay, instead of just putting an egg counter on one creature, let's put them on essentially all the creatures. Every single creature except for our commander is getting an egg counter on it, which again is an absurd amount of potential value, especially in a lot of situations when the board is flooded with a ton of creatures, not just our own, but our opponents. Hey, if there's 20 creatures on the board, that is potentially, 20 cards drawn and 20 creature tokens made when those creatures die. And of course, with this just being an incredible card with it, yeah, you have access to black as well. So yeah, Diabolic Tutor, the best tutors in Magic essentially can be a great way to go get this and make sure you're getting the most out of this commander. But another way to get even more value out of this is, again, after you make those creature tokens, and you've already drawn cards, when those creatures with egg counters on them die, you draw cards and you make creature tokens. Now you can utilize those creature tokens for even more card draw with something like Plumb the Forbidden. Basically, you can cast, this, sacrifice any number of creatures, copy it for each time that you did that, then you draw a card and lose 1 life for each of those. And yeah, 1 life for 1 card is going to be well worth it. And yeah, when you can sacrifice a ton of insects, you can get a lot of value out of this. Or again, this can just be a great way to sacrifice your creatures that have egg counters on them to ensure that you get that value from them. Of course, also when it comes to ensuring you get that, value that you have the potential to get, in Garruk's Wake, you've got plenty of great ways to take out your opponent's creatures that might have egg counters on them. So yeah, destroy all creatures and you don't control, and all planeswalkers you don't control. Wipe your opponent's boards, leave them with nothing, and get a ton of value from their things going away. Or again, if you're sacrificing your own, Sadistic Hypnotist. That is an incredibly brutal and incredibly effective card in this deck. Sacrifice a creature, target player discards 2 cards, activate this ability on time you can cast a sorcery. Basically, okay, your opponents are going to have no hands and no time, because if you've got creatures again that have egg counters on that you want to sacrifice, great, do that. Draw cards, make insects, which you then can sacrifice to actually make your opponents discard even more cards. So essentially, sacrificing a creature with an egg counter on it is basically like, hey, okay, target player is going to end up discarding 4 cards because I sacrificed that creature, get another token that I can sacrifice to make that players lose 2 more cards on top of that. Yeah, players are going to have no hands, and it's going to be very hard to stop you once you get things going with this. So yeah, I think Zyra has a lot of potential and can do some really exciting and even some brutal things. So yeah, I think well deserving of number 4. But now let's move on to number 3 with Tetsuo Imperial Champion, a 3/3 human samurai that costs blue, black, red. And when Tetsuo attacks, if it's equipped, choose 1. It's going to deal damage equal to the highest mana value among equipment attached to it to any target, or you may cast an instant sorcery spell from your hand with mana value less than or equal to the highest mana value among equipment attached to Tetsuo without paying its mana cost. So this commander really can be taken in a couple of different directions. I mean, one literally might just be, hey, okay, suit this up with a bunch of big equipment, and awesome. I mean, yeah, you can basically Voltron it out, and while you're attacking, also ping down some major things. If you've got, equipment that costs, say, 6 attached to this, cool, let's, ping down a massive creature or ping someone in the face. And another direction, and we'll get to it here in a bit though, is to really take advantage of that second trigger, or not second trigger, but the second option essentially, be able to cast certain instant sorceries from your hand. Yeah, just even again, if you've got, massive equipment on there, cool, cast some big spells for free. That's always a lot of value. But of course, you don't even need big equipment on your commander to get a ton of value out of this. And again, we'll talk about that here in a second. I don't want to spoil anything just yet. Although you might have already seen the quick take on this one, but still, that's beside the point. Anyways. A small equipment like Gorgon's Head can make a massive impact with this commander. It just costs 1, so again, with that trigger, it's just going to be either 1 damage or, cast something very small for free. But yeah, equipped creature has Death Touch. Giving Tetsuo Death Touch means that 1 point of damage that we can dish out is deadly to any creature on the board. So yeah, it can be a great way to take out a creature and even to get Tetsuo through. Speaking of getting this commander through, yeah, again, with an attack trigger like this one, we need to make sure that we can get through to keep protecting our commander. So yeah, Wing Boots is a great option. Equipped creature has Flying and Ward 4, so a great way to get through and also a way to protect it from targeted removal. But again, of course, yeah, I mean, we can utilize, these low mana value equipment, and we can also utilize some high mana value equipment like Necropouncer. Equipped creature gets +3/+1 and has haste. So it can be a great way to pump our commander, and again, take the most advantage out of that trigger. Again, 6 is a massive amount of damage to deal to something. Again, either someone's face or a creature or a planeswalker. Or again, being able to cast an instant or sorcery that costs 6 or less from our hand for free on attack can be massive. But like I mentioned, the way that I would take this would just utilize, low to the ground equipment, because the spell that I want to cost actually just costs, well, essentially 0 with Inevitable Betrayal. This is a card that you usually can't cast from your hand. I mean, it doesn't have a mana cost, so you actually can't pay for that, but you can suspend it. But with this commander and attacking with any equipment that, costs 1 or more, awesome, you get that trigger, and then you can say, okay, I'll cast Inevitable Betrayal out of my hand because it costs 0, and I'll cast it for free. So I get to search target opponent's library for a creature card, put it on the battlefield under my control, then that player shuffles. Basically, bribery for free on an attack. And of course, I can take even more advantage of this with, cards like Repeated Reverberation, which lets me get 2 additional copies of this. So yeah, I can go search for 3 creatures and get a ton of value out of that, and take my opponents out with their own creatures. And of course, I can utilize cards like, Flood of Recollection to get this back into my hand to be able to do it again and again and again. So yeah, there are a lot of different directions that you can take this commander. It doesn't have to be an Inevitable Betrayal build, but if I am building around this commander, that is exactly what it is going to be. Because casting spells you shouldn't be able to cast this way, at least for me, is a lot of fun. So yeah, Tetsuo, you definitely have earned your spot at 3. But now let's move on to number 2 with Ramses Assassin Lord, a 4/4 assassin with Death Touch that costs 2 blue and a black, and it says, other assassins you control get +1/+1, and whenever a player loses the game, if they were attacked this turn by an assassin you control, you win the game. So this is an incredibly spicy commander, and an effect that I really never expected to see. I mean, okay, obviously just at a base level, this is a Death Touch commander that can be effective, at blocking and also attacking, and it pumps your assassins, which is great. But this is just basically, hey, you take out one player, you win. That's all you need to do. So it kind of like turns the game from a multiplayer game in a way to like a one-on-one, where you can just take down a player and win the game from there. You don't have to take out the other two. It doesn't matter how, in a dominating position the other 2 players might be. It doesn't matter. You take out one, you win. And you don't even have to do all the work for this, because your opponents are going to have to be pretty careful with how they go about attacking other players and, getting them down. Because if another player gets low, even if you didn't do any of the work in getting that player at a low life total, if you eventually take them out and you attack with an assassin, you win. you win for not doing a lot of work yourself. So yeah, this commander can be incredibly deadly, and it's just a very spicy design that, again, I never expected to see. And of course, over the years, we have gotten a lot of exciting assassins. I mean, Stronghold Assassin, tap, sacrifice a creature, destroy target non-black creature. This can be a great way to get your assassins through, and again, just keep protecting your assassins, get more damage in. And yeah, I mean, if you want to take out one player, this can be a good way to help get that last push to do so. And speaking of clearing the path, well, Massacre Girl can do that, and then some. When it enters the battlefield, each other creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Whenever a creature dies this turn, each creature of the Massacre Girl gets -1/-1 until end of turn. This can take out a ton of creatures at once and just be, basically a creature-based board wipe. Or how about Mari the Killing Quill, a great card with Assassins. Whenever a creature from controls dies, exile with a hit counter on it. Assassins, Mercenaries, and Rogues you control have Death Touch, and whenever this creature is combat damage to a player, you may move a hit counter from a card that player owns in exile. If you do, draw a card and create 2 treasure tokens. So this can provide us a ton of value throughout the game, and yeah, again, just giving our Assassins Death Touch can make them even deadlier. But of course, we can utilize some really surprising KOs to take out our opponents out of nowhere. I mean, like Tainted Strike. Let's say that we've got, some ways to pump our creatures and ways to actually just make, even one of them into a one-shot KO with this. Great, we just need to do this once. Infect can be a great way to take out players quickly, and if we can just, give one of our creatures Infect and take that player out of nowhere, if we attacked with Assassin, we just basically took out all 3 players. So Infect can be quick, but Infect with, this Assassin win condition can be even quicker. And of course, if you want to consider, an even more expensive card, a card like Hatred can really kind of play this role as well. But yeah, another maybe, one, person combo can be like a Wall of Blood plus an Essence Harvest. Pay 1 life, Wall of Blood gets ++1 until end turn. Essence Harvest, target player loses X life and you gain X life for XD grace power from creatures you control. Basically, hey, if you've got more life than an opponent, you can essentially just win with this. It doesn't matter what the other opponent's life totals are. You essentially just, attack with an assassin at 1 player, that player that you're going to take out, Wall of Blood up to, the amount of, power that you need, take that player out with Essence Harvest, and yeah, the other player's just lost because you have your commander in play. So yeah, Ramses is definitely not a kind of Chimera that I ever expected to see, but if I do see at the table, well, I'm going to be very scared and very impressed because yeah, this commander is quite spicy and definitely deserved to be number 2. But now we are at the moment that you've all been waiting for, the golden pig of the Dominaria United Precons, or the Dominaria United Commander product, wherever you want to call them, basically. The Dominaria United Commanders for the Precons, etc., etc., etc. It's time to talk about the best one, my favorite commander from these choices. And at number 1, the golden pig is Kadric Soul Kindler. Kadric is a 4/3 dwarf wizard that costs 2 red/white that says the legend rule doesn't apply to tokens you control. So that's a spicy start, and to continue the spice, here we go. Whenever another non-token legendary permanent enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do create a token that's a copy of it, that token gains haste, sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. So now we can make token copies of our legendary permanents that can stick around, well, temporarily. Eventually we do sacrifice them, though again, there are certain ways around that. We'll talk about that here in a bit. But yeah, basically, hey, double up on all of your legends for, again, very cheap, just 1 mana. And of course, with this, yeah, we can really take advantage of ETBs and LTBs and a certain mechanic that I absolutely love. So yeah, I love the design of this commander, and anytime you can find a way to really make use out of certain cards in a unique way, I am all for that. I mean, at the very least, though, hey, do you want an extra Atali when your Atali comes into play? Yes, please. A 6/6 and 1 attacks. Exile the top card of each player's library. They may cast any number of non-land cards. Exile this out with the paying their mana cost. Cool. Get a second copy of this. Swing right away for some extra value. Why not? Or how about one of the Kamigawa dragons that, have a fantastic death trigger like the Dawn Sky. When it dies, choose 1. Look at the top 7 cards of your library, put any number of non-land permanent cards of total mana value 4 or less from them on the battlefield, put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order, or put 2/1 counters on each permanent you control that's a creature or a vehicle. Yeah, basically just get an extra copy of this, and you have to sacrifice it later, so yeah, get that death trigger. And of course, you can also utilize non-creature legendaries too, like, Gonti's Aether Heart can be a really fantastic play. When it or another artifact enters the battlefield under control, you get energy, and by paying 8 energy, you exile Gonti's Aether Heart, take an extra turn for this one. So this can give you a ton of energy by getting a copy of it, and of course, if you've got basically like any other artifacts that you get to play and also copy, you can get a ton of energy, and before that first Gonti's Aether Heart, or the token I should say, gets sacrificed, you can just exile it, utilize it to get an extra turn. So yeah, there's some really off-the-wall plays that you can utilize with a commander like this. And of course, this commander can utilize one of my favorite cards in Magic, Song of the World Soul, to fantastic effects. It says whenever you cast a spell, populate, create a token that's a copy of a creature you control. So yes, I mean, all you need to do essentially is, again, get a token copy of a legendary creature. And yes, even though that token will go away, you know, your commander's token, essentially, you just say, okay, I'll cast a spell, I'll get a token copy of that. That one is not going away. That one will stay permanently. And again, since the legend rule doesn't apply to your tokens, you can essentially have multiple copies of certain legendary creatures in play, and you can do some really exciting and really powerful things with that. Of course, since you can just keep building your army by populating again and again and again. And of course, if you want to go down this token route as well, you can take advantage of other ways to make tokens like, Fell on a Third Path, a legendary creature itself that has to pay 2 and a red, tap, create tokens, copy of target creature card in your graveyard, except it's an artifact just as other types, gains haste, sacrifice, beginning the next end step. So this is yet another way to get a ton of value, again, especially out of those creatures that might have ETBs or attack triggers or LTBs. And speaking of getting value out of those, well, Semester's End is a great way to get value out of those ETBs. Basically, you can blink any number of creatures and or planeswalkers you control, and then they come back. And with your commander's trigger then, for each of those that you want a copy of, go for it. Just pay 1 for each of those that you want a copy of. So yeah, Kadrik's Soulkindler I think is a very exciting and spicy new commander, and in my opinion, definitely deserving of the Golden Pig Award. So Kadrik, make sure to look out for that Golden Pig Award in the mail, and I know that you will display it properly and yeah, cherish it forever. But again, like I mentioned earlier, if you haven't seen my previous episode on the Golden Pig Awards for Dominaria United, that's going to be for the commanders for the set, not for the, the commander precons, the commander products for Dominaria United. Again, with the absurd number of commanders from, the combination of this, 41 in the actual set, I believe 34 in the, precons and commander products. Yeah, there is a lot to go through, so I had to split it up. I had to make 2 different videos to actually be able to cover all the exciting commanders, and yeah, to actually make this contest, more fair than, it would be when you've got 70 names on the list, essentially. So again, if you haven't seen that one, make sure you check that episode out when you get a chance, and of course, also, thanks again, and have a good one.
This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.